The sun had barely risen over the quiet, broken streets of the city when Joseph opened his eyes. He lay on a worn-out mat in a small, abandoned shed near the edge of an old railway track. His world was silent except for the occasional rustle of wind through rusted sheet metal and the distant hum of city life that no longer included him. Joseph had no home, no family, and very little to call his own except a small satchel with some bread crumbs, a torn jacket that barely kept him warm, and a cardboard sign with faded letters that read, "Just trying to survive." God bless. Despite the harshness of life, Joseph wasn't bitter. He had a heart larger than the city that had forgotten him. He would often smile at strangers, hold the door open at shops that threw him out moments later, and pick up trash from the sidewalks just to feel useful. But no one noticed. That morning, as Joseph walked to the nearby alley behind a diner where the kind cook sometimes left him leftovers, he heard a faint, painful whimper. It was coming from a dumpster, hidden behind a stack of old boxes. He paused. The sound was barely audible, but unmistakable. He slowly approached, crouching to peer behind the pile. There, curled up against a cold metal bin, was a dog, muddy, frail, ribs poking out from thinning fur, and eyes that had nearly lost the will to live. Its leg was twisted awkwardly beneath it, clearly broken. A faint trace of blood stained the pavement beneath its body. Joseph's heart clenched. "Hey, buddy," he whispered softly, his voice trembling. "What happened to you?" The dog didn't flinch, didn't growl, just looked at him with those tired, broken eyes. As if it knew that Joseph wouldn't hurt it. As if it had waited for someone like him. Joseph carefully removed his jacket and placed it beside the dog, creating a softer surface for it to lie on. The dog shifted slightly, a soft whimper escaping its mouth, but it didn't back away. With trembling hands, Joseph reached into his satchel and pulled out the half sandwich he'd saved from the night before. "I was going to eat this later," he said gently, breaking it into small pieces, "but you needed more." The dog sniffed at the food weakly before licking it slowly, painfully. Joseph sat there for hours, beside the dog, shielding it from the wind with his body, stroking its head softly, whispering to it, telling it stories about the stars and the moon, and about how things could still get better. As night approached, Joseph knew the dog couldn't stay like this. It needed help, real help. But where could he go? Who would listen to a homeless man begging for help for a dying dog? He looked down at the creature, now asleep, shallow breaths barely visible. And he made a decision. With great care, he picked up the dog, wrapping it gently in his jacket, and began to walk. Street after street. Past people who looked away, past cafes where laughter echoed behind glass windows, past the same shelters that had turned him away more than once. Finally, he reached a small veterinary clinic near the edge of the city. It was late. The lights inside were dim. But Joseph knocked. A woman in her late 30s opened the door cautiously. She wore scrubs and tired eyes, and looked at him with suspicion. "I'm sorry," Joseph said immediately, his voice cracked. "I found this dog, he's hurt bad. I don't have money. He doesn't have anyone else." The woman looked down at the dog and immediately her expression changed. Her name was Dr. Maya, and she had seen enough suffering in her line of work to recognize a desperate case. She opened the door and gestured him in. "Put him here," she said, clearing a small examination table. "What happened?" Joseph explained everything. The alley, the blood, the twisted leg, the way the dog didn't even resist. As Dr. Maya examined the dog, her brow furrowed. "He's in shock. Malnourished. Legs broken. Infections setting in." She looked at Joseph. "This will be expensive. And even then, he might not make it." Joseph nodded slowly, his eyes glossy with emotion. "I know. But he deserves a chance. Please. I'll do anything. Clean your clinic. Work outside. Just, don't let him die alone." Dr. Maya paused. Something about Joseph's sincerity cut through her exhaustion. She nodded slowly. "All right. I'll see what I can do." Over the next few days, Joseph never left the clinic side. He swept the front walk, took out trash, and slept on the floor near the dog's cage. He named him Shadow, because the dog never barked, never howled, just followed with his eyes like a shadow watches its owner. Shadow had surgery to reset his leg. Antibiotics for the infection. 4 fluids for his dehydration. And every time he opened his eyes, Joseph was there. As the days passed, Shadow began to show signs of life. His tail twitched. He wagged faintly. He tried to stand, though weakly. The bond between man and dog grew like roots in soil, quiet, strong, and unshakable. Dr. Maya, moved by what she saw, began posting updates about Shadow's recovery on her clinic's social media. She shared Joseph's story too, not just the dog's. And soon, people began to notice. Donations started to come in. Pet food. Supplies. Even offers to help Joseph. A local reporter caught wind of the story and did a short piece titled, "The Homeless Man Who Gave Everything for a Dying Dog." The story went viral. Messages poured in. Some offered homes for Shadow. Others asked how they could help Joseph. One message, from a small non-profit, said simply, "We want to meet him." The non-profit ran a housing and rehabilitation program for the homeless, offering shelter, job training, and therapy. When they met Joseph, they didn't see a man with nothing, they saw a man with heart, grit, and unshakable kindness. They offered him a place in their program. A room. Clean clothes. A chance. And Joseph? He only agreed on one condition. Shadow stays with me. We're a team now. They smiled. Of course. Weeks passed. Joseph moved into a small unit at the shelter, started working in the nonprofit's animal care wing, cleaning kennels, feeding rescue pets, and training others with his quiet patience. Shadow healed faster than expected and became a bit of a celebrity, trotting proudly alongside Joseph every morning, tail wagging, eyes bright. People would stop to pet him. Take photos. Ask about the story. And Joseph? He would smile, kneel beside his loyal friend, and say, "I didn't save him. He saved me." In time, Joseph became a full-time employee. His dedication, his compassion, it inspired others. More homeless people joined the program after hearing his story. And the little shed near the railway tracks became just a memory, replaced by the quiet comfort of purpose, community, and love. One evening, as the sun dipped low and cast golden light across the city, Joseph sat on a park bench, Shadow lying beside him, his head resting on Joseph's foot. A child approached, maybe 8 years old, clutching his mother's hand. "Is that the dog from the story?" the child asked, eyes wide. Joseph nodded. "This is Shadow." The child knelt and hugged the dog, who wagged his tail happily. "Thank you for saving him," the child said. Joseph smiled, eyes glistening. "We saved each other." The mother gave Joseph a warm smile. "You reminded us all that kindness still matters." As they walked away, Joseph looked down at Shadow. "Crazy, huh?" he said softly. "All this, from a moment in an alley." Shadow nudged his hand gently with his nose, eyes calm, loyal as ever. Because sometimes, the people with the least give the most. And sometimes, all it takes is one act of compassion to change 2 lives forever.